Hey, what's up, everybody? Hello, welcome. We are here outside of Burn Bootcamp HQ. Welcome to the Burn Bootcamp podcast. We have an amazing guest. Well, she's not a guest to me. She's like a sister to me. This is Jolene Purchia. She's our Senior Vice President of Franchise Development. Listen to this. 411 territories sold by this woman right here, and her team. I know she would give it up to her team as well.
Absolutely.
But we're just so excited to bring her to you, because when I go out in the field, I hear questions about franchise development, about you know our members, right? Like they want to take everything that they feel physically and mentally and emotionally, and they want to take that into the next realm, which is like the ultimate Burn Bootcamp lifestyle, which is the financial part of it too. And you know, we are a franchise company. We're so proud of that. We love our franchisees. We love our franchise partners. And Jolene is just at the center of making this brand grow. She's the heartbeat of the net new territories that we have, and really making sure that the people that Morgan, myself, the rest of our system wants to align to have the same core values that we have, share the same affinity for the Burn Bootcamp way as we do. And so we're just gonna have an organic conversation.
I love it.
Yeah, we get to hang out in the office every day and talk about this stuff. So instead of just doing it behind closed doors, we wanted to come do it on camera for you guys during the Burn Bootcamp podcast. So Joe, why don't you elaborate on that and get us started?
Yeah. Thank you for the beautiful introduction.
Yeah, for sure.
You know, I just have to say, I have the distinct pleasure of having been part of this brand since it's become a franchise since day one. And I don't think a lot of people realize that. And I think that's what also makes us so special and so unique, is that I've been on this journey with Burn since we became a franchise. I started in January of 2015 at headquarters, and in February of 2015 we became a franchise. So I've been here through the entire evolution of our brands.
Yeah, for sure.
And so I have a lot of fun stories I want to share today. I have a lot of cool things to talk about. And it's been just, I'm so grateful to have this amazing opportunity.
I'll never forget the first time that you stepped in Huntersville and handed me a well-designed packet full of just ideas. And you were like, hey, my name's, well, I already knew who you were, obviously.
Yes.
You're like, hey, I'm Jolene, and here's what we're gonna do, and you're gonna bring me on, and we're gonna build this company together.
100% what happened.
Yeah.
100% what happened. So, you know, I moved from right outside of New York City to the Charlotte area and found Burn in January of 2014 as a member, when it was really just Huntersville and a couple of company-owned locations here and there. And I did. At the end of that year, I went to you with this deck, and I said, Devan, you have to hire me. That's a true story. You have to hire me. Here's all the things that we should do together. And I will never forget the energy and the excitement that was in my body that day, that I still feel today.
Yeah.
It was amazing. So it's an amazing journey. So
we've come a long way.
We've come a long way.
It's been a
long way. And when you hear some of the stories about the origins of Burn Bootcamp franchising, you are going to know what a long way we have come.
Yeah, I'll kick us off with one, and then we can kind of just go into the history. Okay, so you know, a few short months later, you and I were sitting down, and we are literally mapping out the state of Minnesota by hand, because as a startup, you guys, when we were young, we were scrappy. We didn't have all of the resources in the world, but what we had was
heart.
Our heart. We had the intelligence, we had the passion, we had the people, and we sat down, we mapped out that whole, I'll never forget that.
We color coded it. I always say we need a Burn Hall of Fame, and that map has to go in the Burn Hall of Fame, because we literally color coded like cities within that state. It was incredible. And that's what we did at the time, before we had very intelligent mapping software that we have today. So that's just a small story of the point. The point what Devan is saying is that it was a very organic, grassroots effort to get from where we were in 2015 to where we are today.
Yeah.
Right?
Now we're using AI consumption models and
it's unbelievable.
Franchise development, real estate mapping software, and our teams are big, and there's a lot of resources now.
A lot of resources, a lot of personnel at headquarters. But yeah, it was very grassroots effort. We had a vinyl sign that you and I hung from the gym in Huntersville. Do you remember that said now awarding franchises? It was a vinyl sign. That's how we started.
I hung it up with my shoestrings.
Yes.
From the ceiling, from the rafters.
Listen, let me tell you something. I was very proud of that sign.
Too.
We used to make little YouTube videos at the time from our phone, and that sign was our backdrop. It was incredible. And when we put that sign up, here was the incredible thing. When we sat down at a table and we talked about what is Burn going to look like in the future, and we said to ourselves, I'll never forget this conversation, Morgan was with us and we were sitting at a table and it was like, what is it going to be like when we have 25, I have the chills as I'm telling this story, 25 awarded gyms. Like, what is that going to feel like?
Is that even possible?
I know, is that even possible? This is a 2015 conversation, and to be, to where we are today at almost 400 open doors, I mean, it's just incredible. And we put up that vinyl sign, and here's what happens. We had so many people passionate about what we were doing at Burn that people were coming up to our office. We had gotten an office finally on site. We were meeting originally on the gym floor, on the floating floor is where we would originally have our meetings, and then we got our first office space. And people were coming up in droves, ready to make a commitment to the brand from day one. And we had not, like, we were just bare bones at that time. But it was that passion that fueled us to where we are today.
Yeah, for sure. I remember I shared with you maybe, it was a couple months ago, my Facebook timeline, my memory hop, showed me the video of you and I. We are in front of our old map. We have a new map now, but we're in front of our nostalgic old paper mache Burn Boot Camp map that one of our early employees made for us. And we are it's literally 18 months after the launch of the vinyl banners, which were a huge hit, like going down in history. We have to bring those back.
Yes.
We were standing in front of that map, and we had awarded 200 territories in our first 18 months.
Isn't that unbelievable?
Yeah.
It's incredible.
And then a little bit later, Forbes wrote an article about us early on that said, and FranDev was one of their sources that said, since 2010, Burn Boot Camp is in the 99th percentile of new franchise growth in the world. So
we had 1,123% growth
we did.
From that time. 1,123. I remember that. And it's just amazing.
Yeah.
So anyway, with that being said, oh, by the way, we also didn't have electronic agreements. We did everything pen and paper. So I actually brought this to this podcast today because this is, if you know, you know. And this is an original Swarovski pen that we used to sign all the documents. We did everything by hand back then. Nothing was done digitally. And so now I actually give these out to franchise partners as gifts when they sign. They get a sparkle pen. But if you know, you know. Swarovski is where it's at because we were infusing prosperity into those agreements.
Of course. And you always get a little extra prosperity on the knuckle there, too.
Just for fun, I had to add a little too.
Well, it's fun and it's your personality, but it's also why I say you're the heartbeat, because your light, you reflect and you shine onto the organization, is a representation of your personality. And you hold the brand standards and the integrity of the brand at such a high regard that you protect the culture. And that's why our franchise partners protect the culture, because they see me doing it. They see you doing it as their leaders. And it's not just a pen. It's not just Swarovski. It's a symbol for prosperity inside of the organization.
That's exactly right. And you can come to us and you could have a checkbook and you could say, I want to buy a Burn and I want to be very hands off. And one of the things I want to talk about today is like what makes an ideal franchise partner, right? But at the end of the day, it's having those core values. And like you said, it has to start from us. And I have to make sure that I'm awarding and I have that integrity to award to people who have that same mission that we have and see that same vision and feel the same way about changing communities that we do. Anyway.
Yeah, no, so I want to get into that as well. So it's a little teaser for something we'll get into.
Okay.
Let's start with like kind of, you can mash these two things together, okay? So like what makes Burn Boot Camp different? Like what's the foundational focus? What are people, when you are taking phone calls with prospects out there who are ready, what are they saying? Like why Burn for them? What resonates with them? And how has our support evolved since then to kind of be able to marry the growth with net new franchise development and really create that 1-2 punch on net new growth and then a strong operating system that comes right behind it, where the unit economics are not only sound but world class, and there's a correlation between franchise development and unit economics, a very, very, very strong one.
Exactly. Yeah, no, that's a great question. So our foundation is what it has always been. It's the soul of our brand. That's very important. It's the soul of our brand, and it's been that way since day one. I joined as a member in January of 2014. It is the same.
I was your trainer, by the way.
He was, yes. After 10 months, that's when I wrote him the email. I was like, listen, I prepared a little something. You're hiring me. With that,
she was scoping me out for the 10 months before that.
10 months.
Just making sure that I was legit doing what I said I was going to do.
But it's always, our foundational focus always has been not only community, but a focus on empowering women. And it's been that way literally since our day one. And I think that's what makes us so different from other fitness franchises out there. And I hear that all the time from prospective prospects who might have been looking even into other fitness franchises to buy before they decided on Burn, is that, or even if I'm at conventions with other franchisors in the same space as me, and they will ask me, how did you create that community? It's been who we've always been.
Right.
We didn't create it. It's always been the fabric of our brand, period. Our tagline back in the day was Fit Community of Moms, right? And I think that's important because that shows how we really do focus on female empowerment. It's always been that way. And of course now it's a family focus, it's a community focus, but our start always has been and always was a female focus.
And always will be too.
Always will be.
Yeah.
With community, and that's what makes us so unique, in my personal opinion, and from what I hear from prospects as well. The same thing. That's what makes us fundamentally different, is that. And so what we did was, what you did was brilliant. You took away any, what's the word, where a mom couldn't bring, you know, like had to worry about her child at home.
Like any barriers.
Yeah, any barrier. You took that away by saying, here's complimentary Child Watch. This is for you, right? That's why we're a Fit Community of Moms, right? This is for you. Come in, bring in your child. It's complimentary. To this day still, 8 years later, I still have people tell me they only joined as a member because of the complimentary Child Watch, and now they're looking to buy into a Burn boot camp. I mean, that trajectory of how that foundation is, it still applies today.
Yeah.
And I think that's what makes us so unique.
I was in Arkansas, and we were visiting with some franchise partners there. And all of our gyms have the windows. Not all of them, I can't say that, but the vast majority of them have windows where the children that are in Child Watch, they get to just watch mom and dad out on the floor. And, and I think there's something very powerful about a mom being able to not only get her workout in and be worry-free, like, and really have that time for herself, but also like the value is really where, you know, their child gets to see them doing hard things, and they get to grow up like having a happy, positive, optimistic association with mom and dad doing hard things, you know? That's
exactly right. Yeah. They're looking at the strength of their parents, you know, watching them through the floor. Yeah. Exactly right. And that has to instill in them too.
And all this stuff is intentional, Joe, right? Like it's none of the community elements. That's what we do best, right? Better than anybody. And so it's woven through every single thread because it is our DNA. It's in every single cell. There's no other option. It's like, that's just who we are. If that doesn't work, then we don't work. Like the community, the human element, the core values that we share, the behaviors that we share, it's much bigger than fitness. But you know, it was intentional. So talk to me about the evolution and the intention around, you know, what a real franchise prospect who believes in all that stuff, who felt that, they've experienced what we're talking about. You know, they're interested in becoming a franchise partner now. And talk to us about the evolution of the intentionality with the departments, the technology, the personnel. So, just how we kind of went from mapping Minnesota out on a piece of paper into you know, having some of the most sophisticated world-class stuff out there.
I think the bottom line, here's the amazing thing, and I use this line a lot, and it holds so true. When you're a Burn Bootcamp franchise partner, you're in business for yourself, but you're not in business by yourself. Period. I mean, that's what it is. So like, you've got this passion for this brand and helping communities and fitness, but you've got an entire dedicated team of headquarters behind you, right? Every single person who works at headquarters with us and all of the departments that we have created since our inception, since our very organic grassroots inception, are to ensure the success of our franchisees. Bottom line, that's what it is. So now we've got these departments. We've got a very robust, sophisticated marketing department and a retail department. I mean, we've got all these internal departments with vice presidents over all of them, right? And leaders. And how many people do we have at headquarters now?
Just over 70.
I was just going to say 70.
We're constantly growing, so the number's changing weekly.
Yeah.
But we have, another almost 20 people that are either approved to be hired or on the docket to possibly be hired. So.
Okay. And when I started, there was like 3 of us, right? You know what I mean? And here we are today, 8 years later. And let me tell you something else, because you hit on this before, and I want to make sure the audience watching knows this as well. What we have done in franchising is an anomaly. This is not normal. There's a lot of franchisors out there in the United States. To get over 100 units before your 10-year mark is an anomaly. And we have done that in spades at Burn Boot Camp. And we'll talk a little bit more about milestones as we move forward in this conversation. But it's not something that's seen very often. And it's because of this passion. You see this passion? Like, you can't make this up.
We can talk about this forever, you guys.
Like, we can't make this up. I mean, this is the core of who we are, and this is who we want to bring into the system. And so now we have all these sophisticated departments. You know, specifically within my department in franchise development, we've spent a lot of time, money, and effort on a very sophisticated mapping technology that's really going to help you and I have a conversation about where is the best area for you to open a Burn Boot Camp in. What are we seeing on the ground? We're using AI technology to look at all the data points. Where are people driving? How are they getting there? What's egress and ingress? You name it, we have that technology now. So I'm super proud of that.
Yeah, I am too. And that 1-2 punch, we haven't let, so franchise development and the sophisticated growth there has also, that if that's the one, right, then the two is the operational side and the growth there. So you have the Burn operating system, and this Burn operating system has 6 pieces of the pie. It starts with vision. That's my job for the company. It's 8 questions that are followed by all, right? And I set forward the vision, and then there's people, there's process, there's traction, there's issues, and there's data. And those 6 pieces of the pie really allow us to organize our operational efforts so that unit economics, meaning the individual profitability at every location, is not only world-class, which we are already there today. I'm running statistics and analysis right now, and I have it done. We're world-class. If that means top 10, we're in world-class today. Okay, if y'all know me for any amount of time, or if y'all know Jolene for any amount of time, that's not good enough. We're going to get to number 1. We're not quite to number 1 yet, but we have all of the makings, all the trajectory, all the energy, all the passion to get to that number 1 spot in this industry from a profitability standpoint at a unit level. And that's really what's important to me. And it's what's important to Morgan, who's really overseeing the holistic nature of the brand, is to make sure that franchise development is out and growing new units and bringing new, fresh energy and talent into the organization, but then also that the energy and talent into the organization is set up for success, and that we fulfill our fiduciary responsibility to make sure that, hey, you have every play that you need to run, and you've got 70 plus people and growing people here that can help you run those plays. And, you know, thousands of people in the organization who are right there beside you, like you said, as an actual team. It's a team.
Yes.
It's a team.
Let me drive this point home a little bit more too. Let me share with you a story. So in 2015, at the time, I did a lot of jobs because we were lean and mean, right? And so I did a lot of jobs. One of them was hiring head trainers at that point for company-owned locations. I had a conversation with a gentleman in 2015, and he said to me on the phone, I'm eventually going to own 10 Burn Boot Camps. This is what he said in 2015. And his name is Scott Tobin. And he came in as a head trainer for one of your gyms, ended up buying that gym from you. To date, Scott Tobin owns 11 locations within Burn Boot Camp, multi-state owner in North Carolina and Virginia, 11. And him and I talk weekly about where he's going next because he has explosive plans for growth. So that's just to your point. He came in early on, was an early adopter of the brand, and he's still growing today, 8 years later. And to him, it's not enough to have 11. He's like, I want 20 to 30 in my portfolio because that's how passionate he feels about this brand. So just driving that home is he wouldn't continue to do that year over year and buy additional locations and territories if we didn't have world-class economics, right?
For
and
sure.
something else to be so proud of that probably you don't brag on enough is that we're in the top 10 as the only privately held company.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah,
you can brag on that.
That's a big deal.
Can brag on that.
That's a big deal. We are not private equity backed like all the other gyms that are also in that top 10 space. This is a really big deal, and I think that just drives home, the strength in our brand.
Yeah, I agree. I think it's an amazing culture to be a part of. Like when you get to do what you love with who you love, like people that you love and that love you back, and you all get to kind of go forward together. It's that community that we have at the membership level is just amplified at the franchise partner level, and that part of that evolution in me as a leader has been able. What I've done is really tried to do my very, very best to dream big enough, right, and to have a plan and a strategy to be able to execute that dream, so that ambitious people like Scott Tobin can dream underneath the dream, right, and they can, as an entrepreneur, have some guidance and have a team. It's very lonely on the entrepreneurial island.
Right.
You know, and it's also very hard to connect with other entrepreneurs because they're very busy.
Right.
You know, so like everything that you would need, everything we need is kind of built in here, and I love it. So let's talk about, you know, because it can be all sunshine and rainbows, and it's not, and we don't want to pretend like it is.
Sure.
We had a tough time through the pandemic. It was roughly 22% in sales that was stagnant for a while. We're back above and beyond, better, more healthy from a unit economic standpoint than we've ever been. The brand's on fire. You're having a killer month, particularly in this month. Although people may not be listening to it this month. This month is a fire month, right?
It's a phenomenal month.
And the energy is amazing, the trajectories. Yes. But what is the challenges, Joe? I want you to talk to, like, we're very real. One of our core values is authenticity. So we're not gonna sit here and give you a sales pitch on this. Yeah. Although we're in love with our brand, and we're gonna tell you about what we're in love with about it, right? We also want to tell you what's hard about it, what challenges are in it.
Yeah, so here's one thing that I wanted to chat about, because you're very right, Devan, there's definitely challenges. There are people who I speak to every day who are so passionate about our brand, that are members at a location. Listen, at the end of the day, 80 to 90% of the people that I talk to on a daily basis are members at a current location. It's not just investors looking to buy into a brand. I mean, they're typically members first, right? Although some people find us other ways. But with that being said, if you're a member at a gym and you love it, and you want to own a burn, here's where I see a challenge, is that if the territory is already sold out, there's nothing there. And I don't want you, if you're brand new coming into the system, to be what we call a remote owner, right? Because you're there building that community on the floating floor every day with your members. And so if you're living more than 2 hours away from where your gym is at, how you're possibly going to do that? You're relying on your team to do that for you. And I think it's important that you get you're in there, you know, getting your hands dirty initially and building that community, right? And so that's a big challenge in our department right now is, listen, at the end of the day, we have almost 400 open gyms across the country, and we have some sold out territory in certain areas. And so it's a challenge, but there's ways to mitigate that. And you know, what I talk to people about is, if you really want to make this dream happen, are you willing to move to make it happen? Yeah. Are you willing to start fresh somewhere else? And I have so many franchise partners that have done just that.
Tell us Adam and Melissa's story.
Adam and Melissa Perez.
Tie them into Kip too, because I want people to hear the connectivity.
Members at one of the Downers gyms in Raleigh, North Carolina. The Downers are multi-unit owners in Raleigh, phenomenal franchise partners, very well
respected. Shout out to
Kip and Katie. Kip and Katie,
what's up,
we
you guys?
love you.
Hope you're listening.
So Adam and Melissa were founding members at one of those locations there for many, 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 many years. He had a conversation with me, very passionate. Jolene, I want to do this. I want to make this a part of our lives. I know this is the next step in my family's life. I said, I want you to be there. Very sophisticated, smart, passionate. You could tell he had all the makings of everything to be a great franchise partner. With that being said, I said, you have to move to make this happen, right? So, you know, we sort of don't talk for a couple of months after that. He goes on a family vacation to Nocatee, Florida. Shout out Jess Melquest. He goes on vacation to Nocatee, Florida. Literally, that same night, he picks up the phone and he calls me again and he said, Jolene, I just visited Nocatee, Florida, the Jacksonville market. Guess what? You're right. I'm going to move to make this happen for my family. He's like, let's talk about areas on the east coast of Florida that would be available for me to buy a burn. And that's how we started it from there. And they lived there for 25 years. They moved their whole lives and are now in the Orlando area. They took over one gym. They're opening new gyms. Adam sits on our franchise advisory council. His wife Melissa sits on our marketing advisory council. They're powerhouses in our system. And they're a great example of a couple who picked up their whole lives because this was so important to them, and they made it happen, and they're doing it amazingly.
Yeah, I love that story.
Me
I love
too.
that story, and it's incredible to speak with Adam and Melissa and just hear, because you know, as the visionary of the company, what's really important to me, and all of our franchise partners can attest to this, is that I'm not a passive person.
No,
right?
Not by any means.
I want to have a relationship with you. In fact, not only do I want to, I think it's imperative
to have one.
Imperative it's imperative and it's an obligation based on my fiduciary standard to add another layer to it, right? So not only do I want to, not only is that what lights me up, but I have to, because that trust that's built between the franchise partners and myself and Morgan and Jolene, but specifically with me as the person that created the company that they recognize for doing so, it's like, I'm not going anywhere. And the best way I could show people that I'm not going anywhere is by telling them that often, and by really being curious and inquisitive about what's working and what's not working inside of the organization, not from a state or a regional perspective, from an individual unit perspective with individual families. I want families who want to be a part of Burn, or who refuse not to be a part of Burn, let's put it that way. I want those people that aren't even looking at other brands that are like, no, that's my brand, that's what I believe in, that's my team. I want to put that on that jersey on my chest, that I want to represent. I want to represent Burn Boot Camp not only for me, but for my family and my family's future and my community. I like the conviction of when I sit down with somebody and they're like, hey, I'm doing this. You just get out of my way or tell me how, or be my partner, right?
Yes.
And to me, it's to back up Jolene, the best thing that I could do is when she and you get on the phone and you make the decision to move forward, is that right away on the other side of that agreement, on the other side of that signing date, that you're getting on the phone with me and we are going to talk about and unpack your vision, right? And we're going to unpack what motivates you, not our vision, not Devan and Morgan's or Jolene's vision, your vision, right? And we're going to unpack what that is so that we know how to support you, and so my team can best support you as you continue to grow your empire. And so
I love that you just said all of that, because what something you do spectacularly is you get very granular with people, right? You don't sit surface level. You want to know all the details to help them grow. I love that about you.
I want to wake up and make this brand better every day and do something to make it better every day. And that's how I know how to do it best, is to be friends and family and on the same level. We call it flat, be on the same level as everyone. I don't know how to do it any other way.
Right.
Yeah. Let's end it like we always do. 2 claps on 2, 1, 2.